Welcome to Copilots, the podcast where we read not just the first episode of a webcomic, but also the second.
You took my part of the intro.
Sorry.
That was very, very rude.
Sorry, we could go again.
Nope, it's good.
No,
this is a different episode. It's fine.
No, we could go again.
No. This episode's special.
No,
it's fine.
We can go again.
Fine.
Welcome to Copilots, the podcast where we read not just the first episode of a webcomic,
but also this. Wait, did you say webcomic?
Yeah.
Okay. Because sometimes the first episode just isn't that great, and you need to read the second.
And here, we take that chance for you, and let you know if it's worth reading more than just one episode.
I'm Justice, alongside me and my co-pilot Josh, and I'm greatly confused, but on this episode of Copilots, we'll be talking about the webcomic Marionetta?
First, before we dive into Marionetta, happy 3-year anniversary! Copilots now is officially 3 years old.
And as you probably just noticed, what was that? That's right, a new, better opening.
New intro music?
Yes.
Do we have new outro music to go with it? You'll have to stick around and find out. But we do want to shout out Jack's Gameface over at twitch.tv/Jack's Gameface for the new tunes. Check his stream out. He's a cool dude who does cool stuff.
Makes great music, as you just heard. And so, yeah, this is a webcomic. Specifically, it's a webcomic on the WebToon app. I think they can also be accessed on a desktop or computer of some
They can be
sort.
accessed on desktop because I read God of High School on desktop.
And WebToon in of itself isn't necessarily the best webcomic thing to read, but it is large in its scale at this point.
It's kind of like Shonen Jump of the webcomic world.
Yeah,
not like in that they curate the same type of style of stuff as Shonen Jump, but just in like when you mention webcomics, people think webtoon, whereas like you mention manga, people think shonen.
Yeah, like it's big enough, it distributes a lot of it, and while it has issues, you also find some good shit on there. So, as you may have heard if you listened to the In the Cockpits, we were looking to do a preferably book. That was our hope for this episode.
That was the big 3-year anniversary plan. Read a book that has episodes instead of chapters.
Or episodes instead of book entries. But we couldn't find that. But I did get an update on WebToon that reminded me, oh fuck, they call their chapters, as I would normally call that for a comic, episodes for most things. I assume it's the base setting on WebToon, but the author of what we're talking about today didn't change it, so they're episodes. Fuck yeah.
So, we are reviewing Marionetta, as Justice informs you, a WebToon original by Miriam Bonastre. I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right.
I think it's Miriam Bonastre Tur, because I see A-T-U-R as a separate name after Bonastre.
Maybe. I'm just looking at the title card for Marionetta.
I was looking at their name on the About section before I clicked through to the episode stuff.
That makes more sense.
I mean, I would go with what's probably on the card, because they're the one that designs that. So I would say Miriam Bonastre. I'd say you're more correct than I am.
Fair enough. And Marionetta opens with a solid black panel. Mm-hmm. And this is actually something that I haven't read a lot of webtoons.
Yeah.
I haven't read a lot of webcomics.
Yeah.
I've literally read a good chunk of the first part of God of High School up until they go into a different world and they took away what I loved of God of High School. Mm-hmm. And maybe one other one, I can't remember, but I haven't read a bunch of webcomics.
Yeah.
That said, on WebToon, they are designed in such a manner that you don't actually have individual panels, you just scroll.
Yes, it is all scrolling down. Now, a lot of it is obviously dependent upon the author. Some of them still do a panel setup, so you just scroll down to a new panel. Some of them, they just do it as all one long art piece, basically. They still, from my understanding, upload it as individual pages, but it's a long, continuous piece of art that they've done.
Yeah, and this has, like, some, like, obvious segments where the pages are different pages.
But they use the fact that our viewing device is a phone, and the way the app works, that you just scroll down, as a way to frame some of their shots really well.
For instance, this first start, as you scroll down, you're shedding light down from the top of a tent into, like, a mirror, and it looks like a harlequin with a mushroom-style hat on, and it's the inside of a circus tent, but, like, you're descending from the top of the tent down with the light.
Yeah, though I wouldn't say that's a mirror. I think it's a backboard for a throwing style
you're right,
act, because there are knives sticking out of it.
You are right. I thought it was a mirror, but you are correct, and that makes the next scene make so much more sense.
And we can see that this appears to be during a show, because there's a bunch of people sitting in stands in the background.
And there's a single text bubble on this, and it says, "Julia, what have you done?" And we scroll down a little bit more, and we get, like, an image of a bloody knife sticking out of a figure. We can't actually see the figure very well.
We see a shoulder and what seems to be hair.
And a knife sticking out of where the face would be. And then a bloody hand in the next panel.
Which seems to be the same person with the knife, because it is, both of these we can see the backdrop of the, what I assume to be a stand.
The knife board with, like, the lights on and stuff. And then we scroll down and we see the front of the face of the woman in the harlequin outfit.
Yep.
And then we can see behind her, and her friend is saying, did you just kill him? And Julia is, like, red in the face and crying, and, like...
I mean, I think the red in the face comes from makeup, because it looks like she's meant to be... So her harlequin outfit, she's wearing a giant toadstool as a cap.
Yeah.
So I think that the red in the face is literally, like... Makeup done, because we also see white spackling.
That makes sense,
on the face for, like, freckling of it. And... So I would assume that, like, whoever she may have just killed is, like, actively her partner in this act, because we can see in their original shot and in their shot with their glove hand that they have the similar, like, frills with bells on the end that her outfit has. Yeah. And it seems to be the same blue/greens of the color.
Yeah. And then as we scroll down past that, we get the title card, Marionetta by Miriam Bonistre.
Yep. And then we scroll down to a white screen that says months earlier.
And as we scroll, we get a single panel of a bus that is mostly filled up with people. And then Julia saying, "Oh no, we'll miss the bus," as she runs towards it.
Yeah. So Julia and her friend are running to catch up to the bus. Because they're late, obviously. And the bus is like... So a lot of this is, like, the art style is not what I meant to say. The style for, like, the world is, like, I would say early 1900s-ish almost, but, like...
It's got an Industrial Revolution vibe to it.
Yeah, but with, like, slightly more advanced, but still weird, if that makes sense. Like, it's slightly off from that, but it heavily gives those vibes.
Yeah, so Julia and her friend are running after the bus as they leave their job at a uniform manufacturing building, and they're chasing the bus down. The bus breaks, and the bus driver's really gruff with Julia. He's like, "Yeah, you know you could be on time, right?" And then her friend, whose name is Camilla.
Or Camilla. I mean, it depends on how you choose to read it. Is Kamille.
Yes, Camille. Yeah. Sorry. Her friend Camille shows up behind her. And the bus driver's like, "Oh, Camille, you're so sweet and adorable. Of course I'll wait for you."
Yeah. I mean, we can see that that's kind of the vibe of her character initially, because even as he's, like, complaining to Julia about arriving next time, we see Camille arriving in the background shot, and we see other passengers pressed up against the glass with little hearts drawn next to their head, and, like, big smiles staring at Camille.
Yeah. And Camille's like, "Oh, it was my fault. I made this flower, and I had to go back and get it because I forgot it. And Julia came with me."
And the flower is this little patchwork thing made from, I assume, scraps from the factory.
Yeah, she's stealing, because if you're not stealing from your employer, you're not really participating in capitalism.
True. This is my biggest issue here, though, with that, is that flower doesn't feel like it could be made in that factory from what we see later, because the factory, they're making military uniforms.
Yes.
For the Callgrassed Army. And I'm assuming the people we see in this bus in a moment, they're wearing dark gray uniforms, very military. I'm assuming they're the military. And we see that all of these uniform workers are wearing lots of gray. And the only splash of color we see in anyone's uniform is Camille's yellow ribbon, which doesn't seem to be part of it. So I don't know where she got these colorful fabrics at, because it feels like the factory shouldn't have those.
Yeah, because the military uniforms are like a dark gray, black.
Yeah.
And then the worker uniforms are like a lighter gray.
And then white undershirts, yeah.
Yeah. So they get on the bus. The driver tells them to sit somewhere. And they look around, but there's no open seats. And then they find an empty seat. But there's this guy sitting next to it who has a, like, badge on the middle of his forehead, and it's tied there.
Yeah.
And Camille and Julia kind of whisper about him because apparently the rumors are that people that wear those badges have a third eye.
The Akon, I think is how you'd say. It's AH''KON.
Yeah.
Or the Akon, but I think Akon is correct.
And they're supposedly dangerous. It's a lot of xenophobia going on here.
Yeah, there is. A lot of it's coming from Julia. Like, Camille hasn't really said much about it, but, like, Julia's telling her, like, stay away. They're dangerous. They shouldn't be allowed to travel with normal people. And, like, yeah.
And then Julia kind of looks around the bus and she's like, wait, why is it so crowded today? It's never this crowded.
Also, why is everyone being so much louder than normal? I already hate them. They're already all annoying, but why are they even louder?
And somebody chimes out, of course you wouldn't know, but it's the last day the circus is performing in town, and they're all going to the circus. And Julia's like, it's a work day. We have work tomorrow. What are you guys doing? We just got the new order for uniforms. You're all going to be hungover at work, and the rest of us are going to have to work twice as hard to keep up with production.
Yeah, and the guy who called her a stick in the mud, and he's the one who told him about it, is just like, yeah, that sounds like a you problem. I don't give a fuck. Which is also the correct way to approach work.
I'm not going to work drunk, am I? It's not my fault that...
Yeah, I'm gonna be hungover. Oh, no.
Their problem, not mine.
Yeah. And I would just like to say, I really love, like, before we deal with the whole man with the badge or con guy, we get a shot of the bus, like, all the people in the bus. And I think it does a really good job of kind of letting us in on the characters' ages, strictly because they look rather young. But we can see a very large variety of different people who have very obviously different ages wearing the same work uniforms.
Yeah.
But we see that it seems to be leaning a bit more towards adults. So I'm assuming they're like late teens after this point. It did a good job of kind of giving me their age without outright stating it, in my opinion. If that makes sense to you?
Out of the 23 people we could see on the bus, 6 of them are not wearing work uniforms. 2 of those 6 are wearing military uniforms. One of them is the con guy. One is an old woman, looks like a grandma-style person. Another is an older man with a beanie. Looks like he's straight from Seattle, actually.
He does. He really does.
And then there's a couple at the very back of the bus sitting next to one of the military guys.
Yeah.
But everybody else, looks like teenagers.
Or young adults. And then there's like a middle-aged lady.
There's also like 2 children-aged people. One standing next to the first military officer. And one next to the guy who has a bottle of champagne or beer.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, most of them are teenagers, which there's some lore that we get established in the second episode that kind of maybe explains why.
Yeah.
But the people on the bus convince Camille to come with them to the circus, and Julia's like, we can't, we have work tomorrow. And Camille's like, but tomorrow's my birthday, and I don't want to go home yet. And Julia's like, sorry, Julia. I was right the first time. And Julia's like, fine, because it's your birthday, I'll go with you to the circus.
Well, I like just the dialogue there, because, like, Julia's really insisting, like, the circus is for slackers and stuff, and goes like, yeah, but I don't really want to go home. Besides,
kids, slackers, and drunks.
Yes. It's my birthday tomorrow. You can just come with me to the circus as a birthday present. And Julia gets, like, this really intense glare with, like, the classic anime, like, we've added shadows under to, like, the eyes, and the background's gotten purple and dark.
I already got you a gift.
I already made you a gift. Which I think is a bit more potent than got you.
And then Camille's like, but you always end up having fun when we go on adventures together. And Julia's like, this isn't like running off into the mountains and looking for bugs and stuff. This is the circus.
And it's equivocally a crazy party in the middle of the work week with a bunch of drunk people.
It is both irresponsible and dangerous.
And then Camille manages to get Julia to agree to it, though, like you were saying. But she does it by doing that classic, oh, well, I guess I'll just go alone type of thing, where she's like, well, if you're not going to keep me safe, I guess no one will, because I'm going to go anyways.
It's very bad friend stuff. She's being highly manipulative.
Yes.
And so Julia's like, no, that's worse. You can't just go by yourself. And
yeah. And also here we get Julia's last name. It's Lazarette, because as they're getting off the bus, we have some random person in the crowd being like, oh, you're coming and you convinced Lazarette to join? Now that's a feat.
And then we break into another panel. And I really love this panel because, like, it starts with a big tint at, like, the center of the circus. But as you scroll, we get to the entrance of the circus.
It's literally pulling it in from the background towards the towards the foreground, like a panning down shot. Like, that is one of the great things I love about some really well done webcomics on things like WebToon. A really good artist or author who's used to doing it in this style knows how to, like, use the pan down effect as a camera angle or camera work, and it's fantastic.
And we get the sign for the circus. It says, Anton Griminger's Traveling Troupe.
Yep.
We then get a page break, and we start at the entrance sign. We can't read the sign anymore. We're looking at it from the other side. And Julia's being dragged into the circus by Camille.
As a bunch of their coworkers are trying to gain Camille's attention, but she's ignoring them to drag Julia inside.
And then, again, just a brilliant use of the scrolling of the webcomic. We just scroll through the tents as Camille and Julia stumble through the crowds, and we get inserted panels of what's going on inside the tents.
Yeah, like pop-out panels where it's like overlaid with this movement through.
Oh, here's the strongest man in the world. He can lift 5 people at once.
And we also see this going that like Camille's heavily invested. She's snacking on things. She seems to be more interested, and Julia seems very annoyed / frustrated by people, and they're slowly getting separated in it.
And eventually they get fully separated, and Camille doesn't even really seem to notice.
Yeah.
But Julia sees a tent for a fortune teller, and she's immediately like, how is that even legal? Like, that's very superstitious and very magic, and magic's illegal. And so,
yeah, her exact line is, "Isn't that too similar to magic? That superstitious nonsense is illegal."
Yeah. And then she realizes that she's lost Camille, and we cut to a man who's introducing himself as the tamer of wild beasts, and this is his wild beast show.
And then we pull out from an intense zoom in on his eyes. He just has a bunch of dogs.
Bunch of
tiny little
puppies.
puppies. It's adorable.
And he's asking for a volunteer, and Camille's stepping on stage, and Julia's just like, I'll sit and wait for you on that bench over there, okay?
Yeah, and Camille's just like, sure.
And so Julia sits down, and she's like, oh, well, finally, I get a break. I can sit down. And she immediately gets like squeezed into the bench by a man and a woman on one side flirting, and then a family on the other, and she's just like trapped on the bench and can't get up.
In a very comedic pose, because like she's like, man, I can finally rest. Is stretching, and then mid-stretch, arms all the way up above her head, gets squished to the point where she can't put her arms back down. Just an amusing shot. I enjoyed it.
So she then screams, "Why did I come here?" We get the setting sun in a panel, and then she's lying on the bench, and she's like, "I hate this. Where did Camille go?"
Yeah. And then she gets distracted by some kids yelling in the background.
They're attacking a clown.
Yes. One is riding him, another is pulling on his ankle, 2 more are chasing after him, and they're yelling at him to have a horse race. Meanwhile, the clown's just like, be careful, don't clown me, please leave me alone. And the kids are making fun of him for crying, even though he's not. He just has like crying makeup on.
And then Julia's like, "You little brats, behave yourselves. Stop making a fuss. Where are your parents even at?" And like she goes full like she's called a stick in the mud for a reason by the others. Like she scares the kids off. One of them calls her a witch, and she goes, "Oh, I feel so much better now."
And then the clown's just like, "Thanks for helping me." She's like, "Oh, you're not getting away with this that easy. You also caused part of that problem.
Are you incapable of dealing with children? Isn't that like literally your job?"
And then she's like, "Whatever, I can't fucking deal with you. I gotta go find this girl." Talking about Camille, she just doesn't say it.
And then she starts calling Camille's name while walking around.
Yep.
Meanwhile, Camille is finally finishing up with the master of wild beast, and she loses herself in the crowd again.
Hey, no. First off, I have to say, these are good, well-trained puppers, and they're very adorable. I can tell you this because she is shaking one of their little paws as she descends the stage.
She says, "Bye-bye, little guy," and he's just like,
and he's wearing a little bow tie. But my favorite one, though, is you can see like a little beagle pup just dangling from the wild beast tamer's arm.
Yeah.
Just 2 little paws hung over. The guy has his arm stretched out. Beagle's just like, "I'm happy here. This is dope."
So then Camille gets lost in the crowd, and she's like, "Wait, where did Julia say she was going to be?" Mm-hmm. And then she bumps into a masked man and knocks herself on the ground. And the masked man starts to apologize, saying, "Oh no, it's our fault," because it's him and a masked woman.
Mm-hmm. And they're both wearing very flamboyant, but like...
they're stylized Harlequin outfits, but not like the striped Harlequin outfits you would imagine. They're like almost tuxedo or matador style outfits.
I would say his is very matador-esque because you have like some golds and it's predominantly black. But then he has like almost a musketeer type hat on, I would say. Like it's big, it's large, and has plumage on it. And then the woman behind him has this large golden hair.
And like black evening gown or ball dress. And they're like, "Oh, we were in a hurry. It's our fault." And then as they walk away, one of them says, "Dottie says she made a real mess." And then the other person replies, "I don't know how they manage to break so often. I'm getting tired of it."
Yeah. I believe the first one is coming from the man just because the way the shots pose, it makes it look like the respawning dialogue bubble is the woman.
Yeah. And as they walk past Camille, we get a ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. And Camille's like, "I just met the love of my life." And so she decides to chase after them.
Yeah, we have a shot of her just like eyes all swirly and like lost / confused. Her face is just lit up red.
And she's like she's like following them behind the tents and like past some carriages, and she's like, I wonder where they're going. I wonder what it'll be. And she's like, oh yeah, they're probably going to perform. That's why they're dressed up like that. And then the woman turns around to look because she's like, hears somebody behind her, and Camille ducks away, and she's like, oh, now it just looks like I'm spying on them. The woman and the man go into a tent, and as they're entering the tent, the man asks the woman, whose name is Raina, did you remember to bring needle and thread?
Yeah. And she's like, yeah, of course.
So they go in the tent, and then Camille decides to follow them. She's like, I'll just get their autographs, and maybe I'll get lucky and it's just their dressing room. I'll get their autographs, and then I'll go find Julia.
So we see that she has entered the back of the tent, and we hear someone being like, hold Dottie steady, ouch.
And Dottie was the high wire woman from earlier.
Yeah, silk acrobatics and stuff.
She's like in one of the cutaway frames.
They were billing her as like the spider lady, basically.
Is she a spider or is she a woman?
Because she has spider-like abilities. But when we see all of them, Dottie doesn't have her head attached to her body. She's holding it in her hands.
Yeah, and it's the strongman, the two masked people, and the high wire woman.
Yep.
And as Camille enters, she goes, I saw you out there, and then she realizes that Dottie's head.
Well,
And Dottie's like, oh, you poor girl.
Mm-hmm. And it's this great shot where Dottie's looks like kind of sad for her and like a bit concerned. But her head is being held in her own hands and there's blood leaking from around her hands.
Yeah, and Camille goes, I didn't see anything, and starts to run off.
And then she gets snatched back inside by Raina.
And as she's laying on the ground, like covering her head, the man goes, how old are you? And she's like, I'm turning 19 tomorrow. It's my birthday. And he's holding a knife, and he goes, well, it's a pity. You were so young. And he takes his mask off to reveal that he has 3 eyes. He's one of the 3-eyed people.
Yep, he is indeed an Archon.
And a really great use of the scrolling feature here. His cloak is used to like cut to a white.
Yeah.
Where it gives us the name of the comic again. And gives us
the credits.
Yeah, the credits. Story and art by Miriam Bonistrator. You were right. Color by Eden Marcel Zamora. Editor Mira Hernandez. Proofreader Laura Martinez.
Yep. And then I thank you so much for reading. But like, I really like the way the cloak is used because like I've said, there are instances where if someone knows what they're doing, they've been doing it for a while. Because like this isn't Miriam Bonistrator's first thing on WebToon. Probably not.
You said you've read something by her before.
Yes, Hooky. I really enjoy it, and like it's successful to the degree that I've seen it at Walmart, like a collection of it.
That's wild, actually.
I mean, it's annoying to me strictly because I've only seen Volume 2 there, and I want Volume 1 because I never finished reading it because my phone broke and I got a new phone. I had to reinstall WebToon. Could not remember where I left off. Now webcomics like, yeah, you can read this, but it's finished, and we're only gonna let you read 3 episodes a day unless you want to pay for coins. And I'm not doing all of that. That's a lot that I don't want to do.
Yeah, I understand.
But as I was saying, the cloak, like if something's done really well in the style, like it gives you the notion of like kind of what would be in a show or in a movie. It creates a
sense of movement. Yeah,
because the cloak is like a wipe effect. Like we know exactly. I think you can agree. If this was in a show,
the tuxedo mask like ripples his cloak.
Yeah, it's the cloak wiping across the screen would go white or black, and then we'd have changed our scenery and did the episode.
Yeah,
which is what that does here. But it does it with a still image, but an implied motion. Yeah,
it's like the scene where they're going through the circus and we're getting cutouts of the people performing in tents,
or even when Camille's following them to their tent because it's the same setup.
Yeah, it's a lot of implied motion, and it's I very much enjoy it. Mm-hmm. I'm not a big Webtoons person. Like when I'm reading comics on my phone, it's mainly Shonen Jump.
Yeah,
because I'm binging.
I read a lot more comics than I do Webtoons, but there are some Webtoons I follow. Hence why I had the app installed on my phone.
But yeah, no, I really enjoyed this. This first episode alone doesn't make me like want to read more. I wouldn't be like, well, I guess I'm reading more. But it's good. I like the art style. I love like you said, a lot of Webtoons that I've seen have like really blank backgrounds and it's just characters or like
I think a lot of it really depends on the region of art or the region of the author where they're from, their kind of style of like more what they're exposed to. And then a lot of it also I think comes down to genre almost, because like I told you when we were first looking at this, my initial attempt was like looking at horror and thriller like things because I just vibe with those and I don't think they're well represented enough on the Webtoon app, so I was thinking maybe one of those.
Yeah, makes sense.
But with horror and thriller generally it's already pretty focused on certain things and you don't do a lot of detail because it's really easy to get lost in that. It kind of ruins suspense and stuff.
Yeah.
And like a lot of like the really good ones that I was coming across were like seemed to be hastily penciled drawings, like for the styles, like the intent it was done.
Yeah, okay.
A lot more line work to it, like a more sketch style, which definitely doesn't lend itself to that. So
yeah, like I just know a lot of webtoons. The backgrounds are like mostly like blank white with maybe some stuff in the foreground and the actual characters.
or if you have buildings that are like, here's this building reference sheet we had.
Yeah, this has like fluid backgrounds that are constantly not moving, but like constantly moving as you scroll. Like the backgrounds are different and changing, and it's enjoyable in that like it has a momentum to it.
Yeah.
And I like that, but it's not enough to make me go, oh yeah, I'm going to read more of this.
Understandable.
How about yourself?
I think I would read more of it just because I really, really like the art style. Like, that's going to be a big sell for me.
Okay.
But also, I like weird, like, magic. And the description of this does let me know there's going to be magic in it.
No, yeah, Magic's outlawed. We know that, yeah.
And like circus stuff can be fun or bad. I'm not sure which, but I like the character design. I like the world setting. I'm fine with the magic. And the character writing's been good so far. There's nothing other than that really pulling me in, but I'm interested to read a second episode strictly so I can get more of a vibe for it. Like, this first one's fine, so I'd want to read another one because it's just on the edge of being not enough to take me to continue reading, but it's enough where I'm like, because it's a thing that I'm reading, it doesn't take a lot of time, where I'm just like, I can invest the other 10 minutes, maybe a bit more, depending on how well I'm reading it or how detailed the art is, to see if I want to continue it.
If this was a manga, which I'm more likely to read on my phone, I probably would be like, okay, this was a good enough chapter 1 to make me read chapter 2. It's just that I don't engage in webtoons enough that like I don't have the sunk cost of already using and paying for the app.
Yeah.
Whereas I pay $2 a month for Shonen Jump.
Yeah.
So
and there's no cost to Webtoon the way that is.
Yeah.
But I think the thing is, especially with the way Webtoon is set up, is it's easy enough for me to scroll all the way down to the bottom, pull up one more time past the comments, and for it to load the next episode and me read it. The amount of effort it takes is that low for me.
That's fair. Episode 2 is seemingly much longer than episode 1.
Yeah, and episode 1 was a fairly decent length. That's the other thing I find with Webtoons. I read through multiple things before we decided what we were doing for this. And part of the reason we chose this is because the length is enough to have something to talk about. Because webcomics, not just Webtoons, can vary a lot in length, obviously.
I will say I'm incredibly upset that the episodes don't have names.
Same.
I really enjoy episode names.
Yeah.
But anyways, onwards to episode 2.
Yes, which starts with the night has now set. We see stars in the sky, and we see Julia running around yelling for Camille, searching for her, because she still has not found her. Wonder why. And
then she starts worrying that it's getting late, and that the last bus is coming soon. And she starts thinking, maybe Camille left without me.
Yeah.
Which, based on the Camille that we've known, kind of does seem like her a little bit.
Yeah, she seems kind of airheaded from the time we've seen, which, from what we discussed of what she said, I understand why you wouldn't think that. But the art does the classic, like, oh, look at this shot of just her smiling, rosy cheeks, sparkles in the background.
Wandering off in a direction.
Uh-huh.
But then Julia sees Dottie, and she's like, oh, hey, excuse me. And she starts describing Camille, and like, have you seen this girl? And Dottie's like, oh, yeah.
The one with the yellow flower in her hair. And Julia's just like, yeah, exactly, that's her. And Dottie's like, I saw her get on the bus.
About an hour ago.
Which there's this great, the art for that shot is, it's weird to not call things, it's weird to call things shots for a comic, but it's also what I'm used to doing. The art for that panel, even though it's not a panel either, is fantastic though, with the way they've done the shading.
It's kind of a panel. It's
for
a webcomic. It's
For the way they've done the shading though, because the background's dark because it's night, and then the shading on the upper part of Dottie's face, and the way her eyes are nice, like a bright yellow amber. It just works really well with the shading. I love it.
What I really love about Dottie's character design is she has all these freckles.
Yeah.
But like on her dress, where she would have freckles, it's instead sparkles.
Yeah.
So like you have this like dot pattern across her entire like character, which make her name's Dottie.
Yeah.
It just clicked. But like it goes from being freckles to being sparkles. Yeah. It's really cool. I like it a lot.
Honestly, I really like the really large variety of different skin tones we have because it makes each character unique, and also it's a great way to include representation of people.
Yeah.
And though it adds for such like diverse character art and makes people stand out, it's fantastic.
Yeah, the more you can do to make characters like instantly recognizable, the better, I think. Which is why like mid 2000s shonens, every protagonist has like the craziest hair.
Yeah.
It's because you don't even have to like see them; you could just see like a silhouette or a shadow of them, and you're like,
oh, I know that hair.
That's Seto Kaiba. That's Yuki. That's Goku.
Yeah, it's also why I never remember like any American sitcom from like 2007 to 2012. It's all the same generic white cast members.
I feel like you're really dropping some stuff on Scrubs here.
I mean, Scrubs started before that. I'm saying shows that like started in that time frame.
Fair, okay. So Julia's really sad, but she ends up
getting on the bus and going home.
And we cut to the next morning, and Julia's waking up.
Well, we have her getting ready to go home. We get the Marionetta title card.
Yeah.
Which can still be a title card. Fuck off. And then it's morning, and she's waking up.
Other than I guess it'd be a title page.
Yeah.
But it's not... Mm-hmm. God, the combination of mediums is so confusing sometimes.
Yeah.
But we cut to Julia. It's the morning. She's waking up. Her room has got like a bunch of like handcrafted things in it. Marionettes.
I wanted to take a moment to kind of describe
dolls and toys.
The town that we see, though.
On the top shelf of her bookshelf is a mushroom cap hat.
Mm-hmm. Very similar to the one she was wearing in the start of episode 1.
Yeah. You wanted to describe the town?
Yeah, because like, okay, I am very, very American, obviously.
What?
Yeah, crazy, right? But like, it gives kind of like the idea of an Italian villa, like
it's insane. City. It's insane because I was literally thinking Italian villa.
Yeah, but like they're not really villas, but it gives the vibe.
Yeah.
We got cobblestone streets as well. We also see 2 military people walking down, but they're in an area of mountains and such, and like it's heavily green. It's just like a weirdly European setting, but it feels slightly off from that as well.
Yeah. So then we get to Julia, her room that I just described already. She makes her bed.
We see a framed photo of her and assumedly Camille by her bed.
Also, she's like got like a night dress and a nightcap. But she gets dressed, ties her hair back, and is like, perfect, let's go to work. She wraps her bag in the present she made for Camille, which we don't get to see what it is. He's in a box.
I am assuming, though, it is because she has like all those puppets hanging in her room.
Yeah.
And the present is in a bag on a table, which we see has like the remains of wood carvings, and it has a knife. A wood carving knife. I assume it's something she's carved for her.
And she has like a couple baskets in her room that are just filled with like not like full on like logs, but like decent sized.
Yeah. Like I assume she's carved her like some marionette of some sort.
And she's getting ready to leave, and she's like, good morning, Dad. And her dad is a soldier.
Yep.
And he's like, are you leaving already? She asks him if he's leaving already.
That's and he talks about how he has to take some 3 eyes, which I like the way the writing has bolded this to like...
And italicized. Bolded and italicized 3 eyes.
Which lets us know the impact on it, which in my mind, like, I can hear him saying it as a slur, which is uncomfortable, but I hear it in my brain, if you know what I mean.
He is a cop.
Yeah.
I mean, he's military.
Yeah, but they're just cops still.
ACAB, even in fantasy.
Yeah.
But he is like, wait, what time did you even get home last night? I never heard you come in. And she's like, oh, well, I went to the circus. And he's like, you went to the circus? Like, first he's upset about it, but he also
he's like, the circus, it's only for slackers. And then, like, he realizes she seems, like, slightly upset or put off by just everything. And he's like, do you have fun?
And she goes, no. And he's like, exactly.
Well, no. It is, like, dread art style of, like, ugh or disgust that you get in, like, manga and stuff.
Yeah.
And we have a text bubble that just says, ha, 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 ha. And it's his face looking delighted about the fact that she didn't have fun.
He also, in this conversation, tells her to stay away from 3-eyed people because they're superstitious and they believe in ghosts and things like that.
Yeah, and she's like, I would have never go near them anyways. Like, what the fuck? Who do you think I am?
And
you've raised a very racist daughter. Obviously, I'm good.
You've raised a racist stick in the mud of a daughter. Yeah. Obviously. And he's like, well, I'm going now. Have a good day. And she goes, you too. And then we have our first inner monologue.
Well, not really. We had Camille with the whole, oh my god, I think I just met the love of my life thing.
Okay, so not like inner monologue, but inner monologue framing panels instead of in the panels.
Monologue framing story?
Yeah. And she's like, Dad's right. He should be upset. I shouldn't have gone to that circus. Look how everything turned out. I had to come home all alone.
Yeah.
And then she's like, man, I can't believe Camille stood me up and left me there. I'm going to scold her when I see her. And then she's like, can't.
It's her birthday. Tomorrow, though.
But
tomorrow. She in for it, basically.
And then Julia gets to the bus stop and she's like, wait, where's Camille? She normally beats me here.
She's like, did she oversleep? She probably overslept.
Yeah, she gets on the bus and she's like, maybe Camille overslept. And then she gets to work and she's like, I'm sure she'll be here eventually.
Yeah, and work is... Well, so first of all, when we see the factory here, because we see it from the outside closer, one, we see they have like a uniform for... Every uniform goes to a Copilots soldier. Do your part, very heavy-handed propaganda, basically.
Yeah.
But we also see on the flag a badge, which is a crest that was the same as the badge that the Archon was wearing on the bus.
Yeah.
So the way they just handle these people in this country, at the very least, is to strap their symbol, the symbol of their own country, onto these people that they are subjugating, and like that's kind of fucked, yo.
But when we get inside of the building, it's very much like World War I era type of like factory sweatshop. There's a bunch of women sitting at individual sewing machines with pedals and
it's like they scream to me like Singer pedal sewing machines.
Yeah. And Julia has an open seat next to her, and she's like, she'll be here any minute now. And then she realizes, oh, she's just not coming today. And it's like, maybe something bad happened to her. And then she's like,
no, that circus girl saw her get on the bus.
And then she's leaving work, and she's like, I'm sure it's nothing. I'm just being paranoid. She'll show up to work tomorrow, no problem. And then she's like, wait, but actually, she was acting weird yesterday. She didn't want to go home. Like, what if something's wrong?
I can't take it anymore. She turns around in a rush to tear off somewhere.
And immediately bumps into another woman, and they both fall to the ground.
Mm-hmm. And the other woman's like, what are you doing, Julia? And it's Mrs. Bernard.
Which is Camille's mother.
Mm-hmm. Who was just on her way to Julia's place. And Julia is immediately like, how's Camille? Is she sick? Why didn't she come to work today?
And Ms. Bernard is like, I thought she stayed the night at your place. That's why I was coming to visit. Like, you know where she is? And then Julia's like, well, she was upset when we left work yesterday and didn't really want to go home. And her mom was like, well, you know how she gets when we mention a suitor coming around.
She just doesn't want to hear a single word about it, even though she's supposed to be married in only a year. Like, she's a year out from needing to be marriageable.
And then her mom's like, wait, do you think she ran away with a man?
And, like, just pure, like, astoundment. I don't think that's a word, but I've said it, from Julia being like, what? No, of course not.
Yeah, and then Julia's like, wait, I have an idea where she might be. I'm going to go get her back. I'll get her back, Miss Bernard, and, like, bikes
tears
off.
out of town,
Yeah, on her bike. And she's like tearing out of town, and she's like, Camille, in her monologue, she's like, Camille, you wouldn't leave with a man, but with a circus?
Of course you would run away with them. And
she's pedaling up this cliff, and
hoping it's not too late, because if you remember, last night was the last night of the circus in town.
But as she crests this hill on this cliff face, we get this shot of like rolling plains in between these mountains, and the circus is like on an entire moving platform with wheels and engines, and
it's like a very giant.
Oh, it's like a moving city. What is that? What was that series?
I know, that's what I'm trying to think. My brain's on it.
My brain just wants to say House, but it's not like House.
But like the thing I'm thinking of, it's even a steam powered thing, which this appears to be very steam powered. It's like giant steam powered moving city,
like Mech Fortress, the moving city, or something.
I don't remember, but it's a giant city on like big treads, and moving wheels. Along. Seems to be steam powered, and yeah, the circus is just on a giant.
And so
tank,
Julia's
basically
yelling, "Camille, I know you're there!" And like she's on a cliff face above the circus, pedaling. And
we see that Dottie is the one apparently driving the circus.
And she goes, oh, Bob, look at that. And Bob is the strong man from earlier.
Yeah. And Julie's still just yelling, my friend's in there. There's been a mistake.
And Bob's like, girl, this is dangerous. Stay away. And she's like, my friend, give me my friend back.
I'm going to report you all if you don't. And then Bob notices that Julie is not looking where she's going, and she is biking towards the edge of a cliff. And my favorite part about all of this is the pure difference in the dichotomy of the way Dottie and Bob are
Dottie's
acting.
Like leaning with her hand on her head, with hand and like resting on the windowsill of the driving area.
It seems all calm. She's like,
she's going to kill herself.
And Bob's just hands up to his head, yelling in like pure fear and shock.
She's going to kill herself.
Yeah, and he's yelling for her to watch out, and Julia was like, what? Hits a rock and goes flying over the edge of the cliff.
We get Dottie and Bob's facial reactions.
Bob is freaking out. Dottie looks mildly interested.
A giant crash, and then we see a bit of Julia on the ground, the present, the bike handlebar. We get a creak, creak, creak.
And we get a giant looming tread.
Well, and she's like holding her head. She's like, my head. And then the creak grows louder, and we get this again brilliant use of the scrolling on the camera.
Coming down from the top of the big tent, we see a ticket sign, steps leading down, then these big giant like 5 floodlights, then just this wall of like sheet still, and then the tread that itself looks to be half the size of everything else, just coming right towards her.
And like first she's like, what? And then she's like, oh no, as it dawns on her face. And we just, the entire time we've been getting this like creak sound effect. And
it's taking up more and more of the screen.
And it just takes the entire screen up.
After she's like, I'm going to be crushed.
Before fading into black. And then the very bottom of the black, a little tiny blue dragon sea slug with like the whiskers of like a Chinese dragon.
And like a golden aura around it.
And then Julia's eyes have changed from like their normal color to like There's blue and pink, and they're kind of shattered.
I would say that it looks like waves crashing through her irises.
Yeah, and she's obviously got tears pouring off her face, and then like
I thought it was sweat.
Maybe sweat, and then she's like in this multicolored facet of clouds, and she's like, "Huh? Where am I?"
It's just pure transcendental imagery, if that makes any sense when I say that.
And that's the end of the episode. It goes white. We get Marionetta, title card, and credits, and that's the end. I just to say, I love the little blue dragon sea slug.
Yeah.
Like,
I didn't realize what it was because, one, it's not like the bright electric blue that they actually are.
Yeah, it's like a blue with a little bit of pink. And it's the same color as her eyes in that pan.
Yeah, and like we're in this weird transcendental space. I was just like, that's a weird creature. It's all cool. And then you're like, it's a blue dragon sea slug. And I was like, wait, what? Oh, shit, you're right.
You were asking me what I thought about the webcomic, and I was like, I really like the blue dragon sea slug. And you're like, I would call it more like a snake or something,
like a flying fish snake.
And I was like, no, it's a blue dragon sea slug. And I just pulled up a picture of a blue dragon sea slug, and it's literally that with whiskers.
Yeah,
like
I kind of just forgot they were sea slugs. Like I know blue dragons are an actual thing. I just forgot they're actually called blue dragon sea slugs.
Yeah.
So my brain was like, what? Why are you confused? Why are you fusing these two things?
They're adorable and deadly.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's the end of episode 2. Justice, what are your thoughts on Marionetta?
So like I said, episode 1 left me in the space of like, I'm not sure if I would really, like, I'm not sure if there's enough to keep me reading there. Like, I would just because the ease of access to go to the next episode is there. But like, if it didn't pick up a lot, I probably would just be like, it's fine. I like the art, it's cool, but I don't care enough to continue reading. This episode changes that. This episode is just like, and now let's ratchet tension. It'll be fun. We get more for like kind of just showing how militant this world is. But also, our assumedly main character just died, but didn't die, and I'm now intrigued. Also, there's the whole fact that Dottie is headless, but not.
Yeah, they sew her head back on.
Yeah, so like
she's a living marionette. Like it's
the fact that Dottie is dead. It's somewhat connected to the fact that our main character is dead, but not dead. Like, is that going to be a whole thing, or are we going to be dealing with like?
I hadn't tied that together. That
all the magical zombies, or like, is it just the fact that she's strictly magical, and we're going to find out that like some weird magic is going on with Julia?
Look, I can tell you right now, I would read more, but exclusively for one reason.
Yep.
Blue dragon jellyfish.
Sea slug.
Yeah, blue dragon.
It eats jellyfish.
Yeah, it eats jellyfish. That's how it's deadly. It eats manowars and then excretes the toxic spikes of manowars out of its body.
Yeah, but after episode 2, I would definitely read more. I'm intrigued, and I like the art style a lot still, obviously.
Yeah, and there's a blue dragon sea slug that is like pivotal, like MacGuffin going forward.
Yeah,
like obviously, I'm like, yep, gotta know what this is. Look, okay, so I like blue dragon, like sea slugs don't get enough love in general. Sea bunnies are an enemy in Voice of Cards, which is hilarious. Voice of Cards is a great RPG by Square Enix. But in general, sea slugs don't get enough love. And they're like literally ounce for ounce, gram for gram, the cutest animals in the entirety of the world.
Yeah, I would agree. They're really adorable. But as far as this goes, is that legitimately the only reason that you would read more? Or
I mean, it is a large reason because like I saw the blue dragon sea slug in those final panels and I was like, wee!
Just enough serotonin hit to be like, I'll click to the next chapter.
Yeah, like I am also intrigued by Dottie and like I like the like moving circus thing. And I really love like
the aesthetic of it all is just very nice.
Yeah, but like it is the blue dragon sea slug that is like 100% gonna pull me into the next chapter because the next episode because I just saw it. I was like, oh, so adorable, so literal, deadly. You touch it, you die.
Yeah. That's true. Also, that is true. You touch it, you die, and it is literally there just as she assumedly dies.
Yeah, metaphors.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we're both agreeing we'd read more. Mm-hmm. You can find Marionetta for free on WebToons, which is an app available on the iOS and Android app stores. It's also available on
browser, I believe.
Yes, just WebToon. And this is again called Marionetta, spelled like it sounds.
Mm-hmm. Also, as will be the title of this episode.
That's true too. If you want to reach out to us, you could do so in a variety of manners. Namely, we got a Twitter, we've got a Hive, we don't have a Blue Sky yet because nobody's given us an invitation. We don't have a Mastodon because we don't understand how it works. But anywhere you want to find us, we're at Copilots Review. That's Twitter and Hive. And we're at copilotsreview@gmail.com. That's our email.
You can find a link to that and to our Twitter at the very least by going to copilotsreview.simplecast.com, which has also links to our Discord, our YouTube, which is severely out of date, and I don't know why I felt the need to plug that, and our Patreon and Discord, which I already think I said Discord, but you should check the Discord anyways.
And if you want to leave a review somewhere and let us know what you think of the show, we will read those reviews out and shout you out.
It's also just really beneficial to get more people to see.
Yeah, if you want to help us out, but not give us money because we don't post a lot of Patreon content because we're terrible about both having working lives and podcasting lives.
Yeah.
But if you want to give us a little bit of support, feel free to write a review and tell your friends about Copilots, this podcast where we review the first 2 episodes of Things, and Things aren't always TV shows.
Yeah, it's just as long as it has episodes.
But we want to thank you. This does mark the start of year 4 of Copilots.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy, man.
So thank you a lot. And again, big shout out to Jack's Gameface, twitch.tv/Jack's Gameface, who did our intro music for this episode and our outro music for this episode and the intro and outro music going forward.
Yep.
He makes amazing music.
He's just a fun streamer to watch. Genuinely cool guy.
Got a great community.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, just like one of the most vibiest, like relaxing Twitch communities I've seen ever.
Also, he has a couple songs on Spotify, and one of them was my top 5 songs of last year.
Yeah.
Occupation Baby. He didn't tell us to shout that one out, but I'm going to. I love Occupation Baby.
Yeah.
He's only got a couple songs under that name, but they're both goated. So again, we just want to thank you for coming along with us on this ride for the last 3 years.
Yep.
Over 1,000 days of producing podcast content.
Thank you for flying with us, and please fly again soon.
For another 1,000 days.
Or more.
Maybe.
Who knows?